While connected technology is essential for unlocking new efficiencies on the production floor, it's also presented hackers with new opportunities to steal valuable IP and data. To support OT professionals in their battle with cyber criminals, we launched the Security Breach podcast. In each of our over 100 episodes, we've brought in cybersecurity specialists to provide valuable insights and break down critical topics. As a go-to podcast for our listeners, we want to help you align your brand with our expertise. By sponsoring our podcast, your brand will build trust and your message will stand out to an audience searching for tools to assist their cybersecurity efforts. Secure your share in this rapidly growing segment by sponsoring Security Breach. Contact us today to learn more. Hi, I'm Jeff Ranke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. We talk about the challenges presented to those trying to secure the operational landscape of manufacturing. It's tough to avoid what I'd call the usual suspects: endpoints, connection points, credentials, vulnerabilities, silos, and, of course, the impact of artificial intelligence. And just as there's benefits to discussing these individual aspects, it's equally important to look at things from a bigger picture and tying them all together. This not only helps us strengthen the chain, but appreciate the significance of reinforcing each of those links. Perhaps no player has helped tie all of these different players together better than our guest for this episode. Vinod D'Souza leads the manufacturing and industry vertical for Google Cloud's Office of the CISO, where he helps manufacturers securely design and migrate their IT and OT systems to the cloud. Vinod, thanks for joining us. Welcome to Security Breach. Absolutely. So from your perspective, you're working with a lot of different manufacturers. We see a lot of these vulnerabilities that keep popping up. There's more and more stuff, and sometimes it's similar, sometimes it's a little bit varied. What are you seeing in terms of working with the manufacturing sector and some of the vulnerabilities that are just these constant pains in our side?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Within manufacturing processes, definitely vulnerability exploitation is one of the primary attack vector that we are seeing, followed by insecure internet exposure, weak IAM, and insufficient network segmentation. But that said, I think focusing solely on a list of vulnerabilities is probably misleading in the industrial sector, because many industrial environments, particularly in the manufacturing energy space, contain a lot of these systems which are end of life and they are custom built solutions. In many cases, these come up with limited vendor support. So making traditional patching difficult or impossible on these systems. So consequently, a long list of vulnerabilities with the high, the CVSS scores from a security platform may not be the right way to reflect the business risks. So, from threats perspective, right, a diverse range of malicious actors from, say, for example, state-sponsored APTs to financially motivated ransomware groups, they're actively targeting this sector. And even some of the recent data confirms that this is one of the most targeted globally, and cybercrime remains the most significant threat to the manufacturing sector, specifically with the IT/OT system in this space, right? So based on this rapidly evolving threat landscape within the manufacturing, I think it necessitates, in my opinion, a holistic approach that kind of includes IT, the manufacturing and the operational technology environment, the engineering and the product side of the things, as well as the supply chain security. And some of the recent incidents highlight that the impact on manufacturing can be direct, which means it can come directly on the manufacturing and the operations, or it can be indirect, which is like through attacks on enterprise IT systems and then pivoting to the operational side of the environment. So regardless of the incident's nature, any pursued or actual threat to production system can have severe implications for, say, for example, safety, security, the productivity of the operations, the availability, and the overall business operations. So in my opinion, therefore, a more effective approach for security teams is to adapt like a threat-informed or consequence-driven strategy for addressing these vulnerabilities. What I mean by that is which vulnerabilities are important from a business risk perspective, and by understanding the potential business impact of each vulnerabilities, organizations can better prioritize the remediation efforts, determining which issues can, should, or cannot be fixed. So that will allow more strategic decision making that aligns with the security investment with the actual business needs and constraints.
No, it makes sense. And I think you have an interesting view with Google Cloud from sort of 50,000 feet on a lot of different things that are going on. One of the things you touched on there is really interesting, and that's the segmentation strategies. We talk about that a lot in manufacturing, and it seems like a very straightforward approach, but it's complicated when you're dealing with IT and OT working in silos, new technology coming onto the plant floor all the time. What advice would you offer manufacturers in terms of either starting those segmentation strategies or making sure you're keeping pace with all the new connections that are coming online all the time?
Yeah, I think the network segmentation, I think, is a key to make sure the manufacturing industry is keeping pace with the technology. Like one example I can think of is there is an increasing adoption of like a SaaS-based offerings in the OT landscape, where a lot of the software as a service offerings are coming from the OT application vendors. And I think there is an opportunity to leverage the secure cloud infrastructure as an opportunity to enhance the security in this complex environment. So with that said, I think, as I mentioned, right, I think sometimes some of the threat actors can pivot from the IT to OT. Having the right segmentation and right security controls in place to leverage the cloud and the emerging technologies, I think would be the key to kind of go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like that's going to be so much more important too, because as you alluded to, operational technology or in the industrial sector, just sometimes called old technology because we have so many legacy systems out there. As we make that transition, segmentation is going to be more important, but so is understanding how to take the new stuff and combining with the old stuff and maintain a certain level of security. What have you experienced in helping manufacturers do just that, in understanding how to bring in and make sure we're not making things more insecure by adding more connections, even if it is new technology?
Yeah, I think we are making sure that manufacturers are looking at the security from a holistic way from a manufacturing industry perspective. And what I mean by that is when you think about digital transformation, sometimes we think about IT or enterprise applications. As I work with large number of customers from a Google Cloud Office of the CISO perspective, we advise them to kind of look at from maybe 4 pillars. If I had to kind of summarize, right? One is obviously information technology pillar. The other one is around manufacturing and operations. The third one is the research design and the engineering, and then subsequently, how do you take those products to the consumers, to the market, and how do you embed security throughout the life cycle? And then the fourth one is around the supply chain. So as there is old technology and the newer technology, I think one of the advice that I give is making sure that where possible, we embrace modern technology because to fight modern threats, you need modern technology. I mean, as I mentioned, there are many organizations are out there. They are still leveraging a lot of the legacy technology, and it's not because they don't want to, right? I think that there is dependency on them. It is hard to change, and as you kind of think about newer solutions, it takes time. It cannot be overnight. So recently, we published a white paper around how do you leverage IT OT environment from a cloud perspective, and so those are some of the things that we are advising, and kind of look at this more holistically than like individually, because some of these threats you can go after like one by one, or you can take a step back and say, holistically, what are some of the threats in my sector, my industry, and what are the optimized controls I need to have from a security perspective. So you are actually finding solutions that are more broader, and kind of takes into business needs into consideration.
Absolutely. You mentioned a holistic approach a couple of times, and I think that's kind of interesting because in manufacturing, a lot of times when you're looking at cybersecurity and getting after the OT technology deficits at times, it's difficult to do that. You really get dialed in on one thing as opposed to looking at the bigger picture. What advice would you offer to manufacturers in implementing a holistic strategy, but without trying to, drink the ocean, eat the elephant, that type of thing, and get everything done all at once? How can you sort of set some of those priorities?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, I think one of the key things is to kind of look at from a business risks perspective. Chief manufacturing officers want more efficiency, right? Whereas the CIOs and the CTOs want new technologies in place. So really, when it comes to the CISOs with whom I work the most, and part of the office of the CISO, they want to make sure that while you are gaining the operational efficiency or the cost efficiency, you also need to make sure that these systems are secure, right? There are some areas we kind of look at, right? When one is, as you are thinking about secure cloud transformation, integrate security into your, the four pillars I mentioned: IT, OT, product engineering, or the supply chain. That's one. The second aspect is, how do you embed security principle, like applying security by design, security by default, and security in deployment to all the OT systems and cloud deployments. Making sure that you have a comprehensive asset management program where you maintain a robust insight into your IT, OT, cloud network components through documentations and maybe through continuous monitoring. Embracing software and hardware reproducibility. I mean, those are some of the areas that I kind of look at and really look at the true transformation in manufacturing has to happen in all the four areas I mentioned. It cannot be just IT, right? And as you kind of thinking about all the four areas, what are the business risks are out there, and making sure that you are not looking at just threats or vulnerabilities in isolation, but looking at more holistically from a business risk to your organization. I think that's kind of where I would focus on.
Absolutely. And it makes it so important to get buy-in from everybody up and down the food chain, so to speak, so you can implement those holistic approaches in all those areas you just mentioned. One of the things that we talk about too with manufacturing is we continue to improve our cybersecurity strategies and defenses. We're getting better at understanding when people get in. We're not great at responding to a lot of these attacks. It's another dynamic that just we haven't caught up yet. What advice would you offer in terms of how manufacturers can develop those strategic response plans and some of the key areas maybe that we're missing right now?
I think, it's my opinion, right? I think it's also important, to challenge the premise that you brought up this question, that the managing responses is a struggle for a lot of manufacturing companies, right? What I see is that with the rapid evolution of automation and now with the AI, many organizations are actually seeing improvements in their incident response capabilities. And really, I think these technologies can significantly reduce response times and enhance the efficiency of the mitigation efforts. From an effective planning perspective, the tabletop exercises are invaluable. These simulated scenarios allow teams to practice their incident response plans in a very controlled environment. A critical aspect of such tabletop exercises is to ensure that everyone who would be involved in a real incident response participate actively, rather than you relying on simulated roles, right? That only how you conduct your exercises can actually help you prepare and be effective when an incident actually happens. So this hands-on involvement can help identify gaps in the plan, can help clarify the individual responsibilities, and also, the most importantly, improving the coordination when you are under pressure. So that is one. The other aspect I think is, how do you establish a incident response retainer with specialized cybersecurity firms like Mandiant, for example? That would be a strategic move for a lot of the manufacturing organizations, because I believe these retainers would provide access to expert support on demand when you really need it, when you're under pressure, and this can be crucial during a complex or a large-scale cyber incident. And having such a pre-existing relationship with an IR firm, what it'll do is it'll ensure faster mobilization and a deeper understanding of your organization's infrastructure when actually an incident occurs, right? The other aspect is the landscape of cyber insurance. I see it's rapidly expanding, and it's becoming a more integral part of comprehensive cybersecurity strategies. So investing in appropriate cyber insurance policies can help mitigate, for example, the financial impact of a cyber attack, covering costs associated with data breaches, business interruption, legal fees, and recovery efforts, and things like that. So I think, in my opinion, when you think about the responses, that would be my guidance to kind of help putting it together as part of a overall plan.
No, it makes sense. And the thing that I love about those tabletops and those simulations is we can get real OT guidance there on how we need to respond without really shutting anything down or disrupting the production process. That's, as you know, a big part of some of the things that challenge cybersecurity professionals in the industrial sector is, how do we deal with that potential downtime? One of the areas in particular that gets tough is when we talk about patching for some of these vulnerabilities that are coming out there. It's tough because we don't want to shut things down just to protect against things that we may never have to deal with. That's at least the mindset. But when it comes to those patches, which are so important, we know that. Do you have some strategies you could maybe share with manufacturers on how to minimize some of that disruption by implementing and still implementing a lot of these security elements that we need?
I think that's a great question. To proactively minimize downtime in the manufacturing and industrial sector as a whole, especially regarding patch management, needs a comprehensive strategy, because, as you mentioned, I think it is essential for securing your IT OT, or maybe hybrid IT OT systems, right? And the core objective, I believe, is to facilitate the digital transformation, integrating emerging technologies and streamlining operations while you are upholding the security, the safety, and resilience of your operations. So what we are seeing is a critical tool in achieving this is the implementation of digital twins. These functional, I call them double stunts, or the digital replicas, which can use real-time data to create a secure environment for security testing, allowing organizations to test various changes, like including patches, as you mentioned, right, without interrupting vital production processes. And digital twins are going to be particularly valuable for operational environments, because those operational environments cannot be physically replicated, and you want to test them. So having these digital twins can enable safe and effective risk management strategies. All right, and I believe that they will enhance security by providing a sandbox, for evaluating the impact of updates, configurations before you actually deploy into live systems. From a patch management perspective, what that means is thoroughly vetting these patches within the digital twin environment, by simulating real-world scenarios and observing how the system will respond to new patches, potential vulnerabilities, or compatibility issues, before you actually migrate them to a physical operations, right? So I think this kind of proactive approach significantly reduce the risk of downtime that could result from unvetted or problematic updates, because I mentioned that a lot of the times you are dealing with legacy systems and custom solutions. So that is one part of the area. There are several such examples. I think if I have to kind of pick one or two, is how do you making sure that as you build your systems, you build in from a modularity perspective, so that if something goes down or wrong, you still are able to run your minimum viable operations through your the system design. The other one I see more and more now is more companies are establishing a isolated recovery environment, providing a secure and separate environment for reliable recovery when the primary network is down. So I think these measures combined with the strategic use of digital twins could be a good framework for minimizing downtime and also to ensure like operational continuity.
No, absolutely. And those are both concepts that I think manufacturers are familiar with when implementing automation equipment and new advancements in those fronts. I mean, digital twins have been something we've been talking about for a while in manufacturing. Being able to tweak the approach a little bit for something like cybersecurity makes a ton of sense and should be something that we're equipped to handle with minimal really investment at this point. Shifting gears a little bit, we know Google Cloud. I think if anybody asks about Google Cloud and what they're about, they think they know. But maybe you can offer us a little bit more perspective on what you guys are up to from a security perspective in helping the industrial sector.
Yeah, thanks for that. At the office of the CISO here at Google, which I remember I lead the manufacturing industrial vertical, guide organizations within the broad sector of manufacturing through their cloud and digital transformations. And really, how do you make sure that these companies are securely adopting the cloud, right? And these companies are also seizing this. I call that an opportunity for digital evolution to reimagine the cybersecurity paradigms, right? So we partner at scale with major manufacturers to unlock the potential of Industry 5.0, which is like integrating advanced technologies like AI in a way that it is sustainable and resilient. And I see this as like a human machine partnering at best, leveraging the capabilities the Google offers from a cloud or AI perspective, right? We are continuing our experimentation and development of our prototypes and new solutions, like how we work at the facilities like MXD. I think that was, we are continuously innovating and making sure that we are partnering with other players in this space, right? Then we also partner with a number of ISACs, like we are partnering with Global Resilience Federation and joined, 4 of their affiliates last year, like Business Resilience Council, the Manufacturing ISAC, the OT ISAC, the Energy Analytics Security Exchange. We also a member of Electricity ISAC, and we recently joined Automotive ISAC. So how do we partner with the community and the industry bodies to making sure that we are influencing the secure adoption of cloud? Then we have continuously doing research and innovation in AI, and with the guidance on use cases that really help the manufacturing customers to include like architectural blueprint, as illustrative as possible, showing what are the starting points to give customers a practical foundation for their next project. We publish a lot of blogs and white papers, but one that comes to mind is the security guidance for cloud-enabled, hybrid operational technology networks that focus on actionable and tactical security guidance for manufacturing and OT systems, where we emphasize on safe and secure OT networks, regardless of which cloud provider you're using. So thought leadership is another area that we are working a lot to kind of influence, better security. Then we have our own security podcast and advocacy events. One of them is like my colleague Anton Chuakin and Timothy Peacock. They talk to industry experts about some of the most interesting areas of cloud security. Then we also engage with the boardroom. We recently launched a Cyber Savvy boardroom podcast, which offers monthly episodes on featuring security leaders, board members, and thought leaders, and is hosted by one of my colleagues, David Omovich, and the other Office of the CISO leaders. And more importantly, we are there with the customers, working day in, day out to make sure that we work with them to understand their priorities and how we can help them on their cloud journey to be secure and resilient as they kind of move towards cloud.
Excellent. Well, I knew we weren't going to get through this conversation without talking about artificial intelligence at some point. We got to talk about AI, especially in cybersecurity. I think what's most interesting is we hear a lot about how the bad guys can potentially use it. Maybe you could offer a little bit of insight there on some of the trends you're seeing and how some hackers are using AI, but also the good guys are using it a little bit more as well, and there are better ways to use it. So you can give us some perspective on both ends of the spectrum there in terms of AI and industrial cyber.
Yeah, I think there are a number of use cases. I think one from a security perspective, I think which I want to highlight is AI defenders are increasingly using the AI agents for security operations perspective. Google Cloud has a number of these AI agents that we are either experimenting or already helping number of customers, like triage analysis, or say, for example, malware analysis, and for those kind of use cases. And one of the use case with respect to industrial cybersecurity is, and a lot of the customers have been asking for is how do you monitor the OT environment along with the IT environment? And this is a use case that we are working with a number of customers where we're integrating OT to our SecOps platform through secure connectivity and making sure that you have, like as a customer, you have the visibility of what is going on in the OT environment, right? So there, I think, a lot more to come. But I think this is a fast, dynamic space, ever evolving. I think. In the new year, I think there will be more use cases where we can showcase with some good examples on how we can leverage the capabilities in the industrial cybersecurity sector.
AI is obviously, like you said, it's going to continue to evolve. One of the constant variables when it comes to cybersecurity is the human element. It's always going to be people, unfortunately, who are falling victim to the ransomware, clicking on that phishing link, and the hackers are getting smarter in how they're targeting and going after folks. What are some lessons that you've learned, or maybe some tips you can pass along on how to help prepare the workforce and the folks that you're counting on to not click on those links and to respond a little bit better when they are attacked?
Yeah. I agree. I think the human element, I think, is still the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity as a challenge. But I also believe that it doesn't have to be. I think you kind of highlighted some areas. I think one area that I think is, as an industry as a whole, and I think Google does this, offering various courses from a security awareness perspective, and making sure that the gaps are not there. People are more aware of the risk, and how even clicking on a single link can disrupt the operation. So I think I feel that more security awareness and organizations coming together and really offering that education to the workforce, I think, will be critical. The other thing I was thinking, I think from a manufacturing perspective, right? I think when you think about IT and OT security, cross-training, like the OT security people going and experiencing what it means to be on the IT security side, and also for IT security folks to kind of go and understand and spend some time on the OT side, I think would be crucial, just to kind of from an awareness and perspective, so that they understand the challenges on the both sides, and ultimately this will help to face the challenges as a whole from various threat actors and threat vectors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are listening to this. They're going, sure, I'd love for those IT guys to work with me, but right now OT is in one corner, IT is in the other, and they're having a lot of trouble talking to each other. A lot of organizations. What have you seen in trying to bring those folks together and really getting them to collaborate a little bit more than what they have historically?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think you hear different, I would say, different flavors of it. It doesn't have to be IT versus OT, right? I think at the end of the day, we need to think about it collectively as a business. And I think I see evolution in this space where with my customers, there's more IT and OT convergence. I know many people probably, don't like that aspect of it, but I see that they're coming together. And even in tabletop exercises I mentioned, I think both sides of them coming together and really solving for the use cases is happening a lot more. But you are right. I think there need to be a more. I think we don't really need to think about IT versus OT, but as a collective, a cybersecurity challenge and how we can help from an operational and business risk perspective.
Absolutely. No, it comes back to that holistic approach that you've mentioned a couple times, getting everybody on board. Hey, we're all on the same team here. We want to accomplish the same things. So,
Yeah.
Vinod, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate your perspective on a lot of these different topics. We've already mentioned AI. We've talked about patching. Are there any other trends that you're seeing that could really play a big part as we, look down the road a little bit?
I think I already mentioned a little bit. I think the AI agents, I think it's going to be an evolution as we kind of think ahead, right? There will be a lot of disruptive threats that are going to target the industrial control systems or OT, right? I think the cyber criminals, the financially motivated actors, and I think you brought up an example of ransomware, right? I think how it can impact the operations. So I think from a trend perspective, I think AI is going to be probably one of the area that will increasingly help defenders, and defenders are going to use more in the coming year. The other trend I'm seeing is more around supply chain. I think securing the supply chain, having the transparency of supply chain of data is, I think, essential for the business operations, because that is one area I think that it typically increases the chances of threat actor getting paid because of supply chain disruptions and things like that, right? So I think those would be the other trends, and I think there will be secure connectivity of OT into cloud. How do you monitor for edge devices, I think those would be some of the things we'll see more and more in the industrial control system side.
Thanks, Vinod, and thank you for joining us today. To catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or mbtmag.com. You can also get Security Breach wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@ien.com. For Vinod D'Souza, I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.